Hey guys, this is Mark Taylor from GameSkinny, aka Lordhammer from GuildArmor.com, and we're here on the last day of E3 at the Alienware booth where they've got Wildstar planned. They don't have a booth here, but they're supposed to have one at PAX Prime coming up.
And Gamescom, yeah.
Nice, and so I'm here with Matt. You're the art director for Carbine?
Yep, art and creative director actually now.
All right, so why don't you briefly tell us a little bit about, the specific things that you do on a daily basis?
Mostly I'm caught in meetings all day, but those meetings are really exciting because what I get to do is I look at every piece of art that goes into the game and review it, make sure that it's up to quality, that it's, fitting the game style, also, matching the IP and making sure that the integrity of the IP is there. So on a pure art basis, reviewing, giving feedback, and making sure everybody is, just hitting the mark. Then on the creative side of things, I get to have fun meetings with our creative leads, like our lead narrative designer and our design director. And we get to plot out like story points. We get to plot out like what happens in the game when we introduce certain themes and certain story points into to the players. We also get to come up with fun stuff like, hey, what's this new race going to be? And then we just sit down, we kind of brainstorm and just come up with a bunch of ideas. And then, one of the main things we're concentrating on lately is just making sure that there's enough personality in the game. So we'll just play through the content.
I think you've hit a home run on the whole personality. I mean, you're killing it on all the ads, all the trailers, B-roll film, everything.
That's actually another thing that I get to do, and that's one of the funnest things I get to do is I get to work on those trailers. Me and two other guys, we write the scripts, and we get to go and we get to work with the voice actors on it. And then we do everything internally, so we have our cinematics team, and that is a big part of what we do, including the dev speak stuff as well.
That's awesome. And one of the things that really, at first I looked at the game and I thought it was a little kind of cartoony, but then I kept getting into it because of the function. Form follows function, so all of the functions that were in there just kept pulling me in, and now I love everything about it. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things that was kind of like a barrier to entry to WoW for me, coming from some of the more realistic looking stuff to the stylized realism. And I've seen some of the interviews you did, specifically with like the Late Night Dominion. That goes a plug for you guys. And also, hey, it's live here at E3, baby. So plug to the Late Night Dominion guys. And so I did get a lot of that. But what were the things that kind of made it get to where it is? Because like I said, it looks so robust, yet it still has that anime kind of feel.
Yeah. I think there's two aspects of that. One, when you talk about the visual style of the game, that just was a natural evolution. Me and the art team, specifically the art leads, we knew we wanted to do stylization. We just, as a collective, we were like not really interested in doing realism. There's people out there that do it great. I play all those games. They're fantastic. But as an artist, it's just not something I'm personally interested in. I like to create new worlds, like things that people can't experience when they walk out their door. So that was the first one. And I'm a comic book nerd. I'm an animation geek,
I love your analogy in your interview. It's like, I'm a failed artist or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's the real thing. This is my comic book, basically. I tried to break into the comic book industry as an illustrator. Didn't have the chops for it, and then went to school and learned computers and got into games, And I don't regret that at all. I don't want.
And we don't regret it at all either.
But so basically, the art style went through about like 2 or 3 iterations, and all we did was we honed in on what people really liked and what people enjoyed. So we do a piece of concept art, and it would get sent around the team. And then some things were more popular than others, and people would start putting stuff on their desktop that they liked. It's not like we made a desktop for them. And we'd be like, why do they like that character? And what is appealing about that? Why are people latching onto these certain things? And then after a while, we just said, let's take all that stuff and let's just apply it to the entire game. And that's how we came up with the art style. In terms of the personality, We we knew we wanted a game that we could tell like humorous stories and stuff like that, because that's the type of the games that we enjoy, right?
And that's what just makes it so awesome, because everyone's taking themselves so seriously, or they're trying to make it such a rigid thing. And the fact that it's, I don't even know if parody is the right word, but the fact that you can laugh at what's going on yet still get into it and have fun, nobody's doing it, and that's what's just amazing about the game.
And I think even though we had plans for this before it came out, Team Fortress 2 really justified and solidified our direction internally. When that game came out, I personally have no interest in a game called Team Fortress 2. It's a boring name, right? And if you were to describe it to somebody, you'd say, oh, it's a squad-based first-person shooter game, kind of capture the flag type thing. And look, I've seen 100 of those, and I'm like, no interest. As soon as you see the Meet the Heavy trailer, I'm like, I am playing that game no matter what. And I think that, like I said, even though we had already planned it, we're like, that's what we want to do for the MMO space. Like, everybody has these serious characters, even though, World of Warcraft has a lot of personality and humor in it as well. When you see their trailers, it's all about the epic guy with the flaming sword coming, destroying the universe and blah, 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 right? And we're like, let's focus on who these guys are. Sure, we got the giant rock dude with the big sword and, drinking beer, but who is that guy? And we felt like if we could sell our audience on that, on who these people are, like everybody has humans, but who are our humans? And we have humans on both sides, and they're very different people. So that really solidified the personality. And once we knew that that was the message we want to send, and that's what the MMO we want to be, that's what we want to do for the MMO space, we started just saying, okay, where else can we do it? And it just kept growing and growing and growing, and that's how the personality came about.
So how long does it take for content to get into the game, in terms of the creative process?
Well, that's a hard thing to answer, because content is going into the game all the time.
Right, so let's say, I want this new zone, or I want this dungeon, but I have to create a building and the chair, so kind of like the artifacts that then become reusable things within the game.
It depends. Like, I would say that usually we'll spend maybe like a few weeks to a month on concepting, and then probably take around like 2 months to build out those assets, and then maybe another month to put it together to get it to a point where design could actually go in. But we've been creating all this stuff for years, and we reuse a lot now, and so now we're at a really good pace, whereas early on in the project, when we were defining the art style, we didn't have a lot of assets to put into the game. It went pretty slow.
So then let me ask you, is there any difference at all in trying to design, develop, content in terms of artistic assets and stuff that you find for the raid content versus the PvP content?
I think that you have to be very clear to the player about what you want them to understand about the content, right? So PvP, it's all about make sure they understand what that other team is doing, right? So the art kind of takes a back seat a little bit to gameplay and clarity, and making sure that you are making this fun playground for people to fight each other. And no one really cares about the epic POI in the PvP map, because they're looking at the other player and they're trying to kill them, right? So even though you might have cool stuff in those maps or in those areas, unless it's an objective, you don't really want to draw attention to it. Whereas a raid, you want to kind of frame the bosses, and you have to plan for 40 people to be running through this thing. So it all starts with what is the experience. Like, you have to make these huge caverns or dungeons or spaceships for these guys to run to run around. So it's a very different experience, because like one you're developing for a 5v5 and one you're 40v40 or something like that. It all starts with the design of what the player experience is, and that's not just PvP versus raids. It goes for every single experience in the game. You have to approach it from the player's perspective and then design from that.
Okay, so let me get you. How about war plots, which is, from the best I can see, the closest thing I would call a guild hall? Will we be able to decorate those, or are those things that we'll be able to go into when we're not actually war plotting, PvPing, to get them built up and to, hang out in them, or is this all, I can't tell you?
So I can't talk a lot about war plots. What I will say about war plots is we like to see war plots as housing meets PvP. So a lot of the things that we do have in housing translates over to war plots, but the specifics of what does and what does not, we can't talk about yet.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to the game.